It's been a while. I'm back. I saw that my Higurashi video hit the algorithm, like crack did black neighborhoods from the CIA in the 80s. I'm grateful for that, but while it's pretty cool that I blew up, it'll be really annoying to know that every single video I make from now on will get a fraction of, as of recording this, 41k views, I believe. I mean, I'm recording this on July 18th, 2023. The video should be coming out 2 days from now, and if it's not, blame past me. Anyways, for anyone who doesn't already know, Subarashiki-Hibi, commonly referred to as Subahibi, is a visual novel known for its graphic content, an interesting look into the worldview and philosophy of several broken characters. A story about the world ending, insanity, happiness, finding meaning, and living happily. Fortunately for YouTube, we are not in the thick of it yet. No sex yet. I'm sorry. Not that I could even show it, but, whatever. Subahibi was created by Skaji, a Japanese writer and artist who also wrote the previous work, Suino Sora, that Subahibi is a reimagining of. Alright, now, go read it and come back. I'll give you a moment to pause. I know that you didn't leave. I see you. I'm outside your window. Watch out.
You left-wing leaning parasite. You expect me to sit here and listen to your drivel?
Starting from beginning, as we do, we follow the character of Minakami Yuki, our main protagonist for these first two chapters. Beginning from some unknown rooftop, Yuki stands alone, smoking and thinking about the world when Mamiya Takaji shows up. A meek and timid guy that contrasts with the more sociable and demanding presence of Yuki. They don't talk about much, at least nothing important to us right now, but keep the whole limit of the world speech in mind for later. It'll be very important. At some unknown time on the 12th of July, Yuki rides the train to go buy a CD and meets up with the Wakatsuki sisters, Kagami and Tsukasa. Ultimately unimportant, since we get a longer introduction to them in Down the Rabbit Hole 2, but it gives us something to think about in how the characters are portrayed in Down the Rabbit Hole 1 compared to the second. Kagami is the tsundere tomboy archetype, fully maxed into the Tsun part. Tsukasa is the airheaded younger twin that acts a bit shy. They're very stereotypical characters of whom we learn more about later. Around evening, Yuki wanders by an unfortunately pivotal building when making her way to the CD store, and this is where we get our introduction to the mysterious Takashima Zakuro. Yuki, believing the figure above Zakuro on the rooftop is about to jump, she panics and doesn't understand what to do. As an object quickly approaches her from above, she freezes. It hits her on the head, but it was a doll. Another doll quickly comes down afterwards, and she takes both the dolls and carries them up the stairs to Zakuro and questions her about it. Zakuro says a lot of cryptic bullshit, and call me gobbledygook isn't necessarily important to us right now. A quick flash of a hospital bed combined with a quote from Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, and we move on to the 13th. Cryptic symbolism aside, the whole Alice in Wonderland shtick is an obvious, prevalent theme throughout the entire story. The title of each of the chapters in Subahibi is referencing chapter titles in both Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. There's obvious symbolism in the first two chapters being down the rabbit hole, as you can probably tell if you aren't brain dead, but unlike what it says right now, we haven't really gone into the rabbit hole yet. On the rooftop of the school, Yuki meets Zakuro again while reading Cyrano de Bergerac. They don't talk much, and Zakuro leaves just before the Wakatsuki sisters arrive. Again, I'm going to skip a bit since it's not important for my analysis, and I know that most watching will have not read Subahibi, so I'm going to be aggressively hostile towards you and not recap every little detail. One, because it's not a good idea to do that, and for people watching who have already read the story, I'm not going to do that entirely for them unless it's relevant to what I'm going to be discussing later on. And also, I would rather you to read the story if you are going to watch this video. Anyways, later, Yuki meets Zakuro on the rooftop again, where they chat about finding the beginning and ending of the sky. Important note that I can point out without spoiling later points, Zakuro is seemingly shown that she is capable of responding with and recalling Yuki's own thoughts about things that we wouldn't have even known about. So that's a major clue towards the environment that this chapter is taking place in. After that, they do some slice of life stuff where Zakuro and the Wakatsuki sisters stay at Yuki's house, while Zakuro acts as a maid for Yuki. There's nothing important to note other than it being a fun and cheery experience that clashes with the tone that the story has been building so far, with the whole mysterious nature of Zakuro and the whole beginning and ending of the sky. We're going to skip ahead past the King Games section, mostly because there's nudity, where we see some hot babes with boobies. We also have a choice of kissing, and if you choose to kiss, you have to pick a number between 1 and 3. 3 is the main route with Zakuro, and the other 2 are the routes involving the Wakatsuki sisters, which do not allow you to progress the story. On the rooftop of the school again, we meet Otonashi Ayana, the second character to reference Alice in Wonderland in classic literature. She's as important as Zakuro, but doesn't have a role right now other than to make us think about philosophy and weird us out. But enough of that boring shit. We get a bath scene with Zakuro, Kagami, and Tsukasa. Fuck, man. I want to jerk off.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, I want to jerk off! Fuck, I want to jerk off! Look at this!
Sorry, the goon sesh took a long time. Oh, 12 hours? What did I miss? Oh, right. Yuki and Zakuro go to an amusement park. Zakuro drops some weird lines about her and Yuki not being able to be with each other after the 20th, and that they also will be able to at the same time. They ride the quote-unquote Suino Sora ride, meaning the end sky. They speculate what it could mean as they go through hollow shells of buildings, devoid of any life. Going through a convenience store of items dated to expire in July of 1999, up a staircase, into an elevator, through abandoned apartments, classroom, a hospital room with an IV drip that's empty, and into the apex of the ride, the clearest and brightest sky entitled the End Sky. It's hard to pinpoint the symbolism past the fact that all the places are practically raptured, where we see the remnants of people but no sign of existence. Picture of time that exists outside of life. Ultimately, it foreshadows the events of the 19th and the 20th in this chapter, where all life other than Zakuro and Yuki disappear. The girl who is the world itself, and the girl who is the world's limit. They talk about this theory of cognition, wherein the world exists in two ways. The internal world, where each person experiences the extent of what they can understand and experience, and the external world, that's the communal space where each person intersects with another and interacts. Where these two differ is in how experiences change from internal world to internal world, and if those internal worlds can even pair up with the external world. Where does the internal world meet with the external world? Where do the two noticeably respond and meet with each other? We get our information from thought and speech from this external world, but although that's the case, other than knowing that, there's no way to actually know what exists within the external world other than you having faith in what you hear, see, and believe. The only thing that exists is the internal world that you experience, but even that could possibly not exist in the external world. It's a bit of a trippy concept and a bit of a difficult philosophy thing to work out and think about, but this whole philosophical musing, I'll probably go more in depth on it later in other parts or come back to it, but it connects back to the things that Takagi said about the limit of the world and the whole beginning and end of the sky deal that Zakuro brought up. This whole idea is the single most important thing introduced in this entire story, since it changes the way that you look at every single event going forwards. We'll come back to it. As time approaches the final hour of the 19th and passes into the 20th, they lay on the rooftop waiting, where we get a strange course of events with a doll spouting nonsense and wants to have a smoke, and a train in the sky taking them on the Galactic Railroad, which is a reference to Night on the Galactic Railroad, but I don't really want to get into it. The conductor strangely refers to Yuki as Sir while boarding. I'm not sure if that is something that I can only really understand in Japanese, or if this was the translation that they could do into English, and this is later on, but this is important, but I'm not going to bring it up right now. While on board, they see beautiful sights in space of the Milky Way, but Yuki comes to the sudden realization that with everything that has happened, this place obviously doesn't line up with reality. It's like that moment when you realize, oh, right, this is a dream. Oh, God. And Yuki has to walk alone into the real world from this point on and wake up. Waking up in an ordinary world full of ordinary sights. Not in hell, not in heaven. Just somewhere. This is probably one of the most dense opening chapters for a story that I've read. It's incredibly cryptic with foreshadowing and also very upfront with the messaging when you come back to it and return. I mean, most great stories have this type of stuff. The best clues are always hidden in plain sight, but obscured by this wall of cognition fog that the reader cannot get to until they get the key to open that lock to dissipate it. In my true and honest opinion, it's not really a fantastic opening to make someone hooked on the story. I guess it didn't make the two people I read this story originally with hooked on it. But if you power through and get to the Zakuro route, I would say that as a reader, you become very attached to it. Don't get me wrong, though. I'm not saying that power through means that you have to slog through it. I don't believe that that's the case with this. It's just that it might be a little bit uninteresting at first to people reading for the first time due to the fact that there's a lot of slice of life, and it may be a little bit confusing to see all this shit for the first time. But if it's not immediately hooking you, I would say allow the story to cook, because Chapter 2 is where it picks up.
Good luck getting pussy now, nigga. Bitch ass nigga.
Well, Down the Rabbit Hole 2 opens in the same way as the first, but changes when Yuki gets off the train. We meet the real Zakuro for the first time right here, where she looks completely different, wearing a white dress and seemingly acts like they were just good friends. Not sure about that. Right now, Zakuro kisses Yuki out of nowhere, a bit too friendly, and goes on about the sky being full of anxious words and something amazing is about to happen. Yuki, as the infinite scholar, interprets this as tribadism, since she just got kissed. Zakuro isn't having it and ignores it for more talk about the sky and the world. The most important things here are her statements about protecting the world absorbing the words of the fate and the fate of the person who will soon die. She then gets swept away by some girls who seem distressed that Zakuro is talking with someone they see as an outsider, while Zakuro is trying to say that she knows her and it should be fine to speak to. Before she leaves, she seems adamant about reassuring that she'll be able to protect the world. Something so ominous said so casually. Yuki's so bewildered by this that she chooses not even to go any further with questioning it, and leaves the girls being polygamous lesbian partners. A ridiculous conclusion, but anything for sanity's sake, I guess. The three girls look like they're from a religious cult, but we learn this has nothing to do with religion later. Now the Wakatsuki sisters come in immediately after Zakuro leaves with the two girls, and we get introduced to them for the second time. Yuki doesn't remember them because she's a quirky tsundere. They go home together after getting the CD, and they do not run into Zakuro on the rooftop on the way, like in the last chapter. A deceptively informative conversation happens on the train where they talk about Zakuro and their upbringing together. All I'll bring it for now is that Yuki states how she hates people and how Zakuro is being bullied in school. Part of Zakuro is interesting to us since we barely got any info on her in the entire first chapter, even though it almost centered on her. It's interesting. Other than the perception of Zakuro's personality in Yuki's head, it shows how little she knows about her by this point in time, but I guess that would be the case if you don't remember and don't even know that you met someone. Strangely sleepy from sunset to dusk, Yuki's too eepy to stay awake and snoozes mid-train ride. They get back and she goes to bed, ending the day with trying to listen to her new CD, but somehow it was swapped with a voice actor CD, and she screams at Kagami on the phone about it. After almost being crushed by a hot babe, Yuki says she has morning wood and wants them to leave. Ah, yes, the classic morning gawk. Very progressive on Scotty's part. This must mean that Subahibi is transcoded. I want to find the person who started the coded thing and do things that I can't say on YouTube to them. I wouldn't know if women have dicks in their hearts. I'm not a girl. Anyway, they rush to school where it seems like there's more of an uproar than usual. All of them talking about a student who was always alone. Zakuro appears to have committed slipstream later in the day on July 12th. If you can recall, we were given a specific time that Zakuro sent a commemorative text in Chapter 1. At 10:44 p.m., she says she played the first and last prank. We can infer that this text is related to the suicide, but that's strange for Yuki to know, as we don't have any knowledge of Yuki seeing Zakuro at the time at all. We know that Chapter 1 is a dream, but how did Yuki know her time of death in the dream to begin with? When does this dream setting take place? We'll learn more about this later, but not in this part. Second thing to mention, Zakuro has 2 dolls on the rooftop in Chapter 1 and drops him off the roof. There were 2 unknown girls of Zakuro when she hit the ground too hard. Also stated in Chapter 1 is the phrase, 3 spirits, 3 stars, and an infinite line on course to the sky. Not hard to connect the dots and make the inference that she might know more than we as the reader do. Moving on, we meet the real Miu for the first time. I didn't cover the fake Miu because she wasn't important enough to cover, and she still isn't, but she says some interesting things here. Miu calls the Wakatsuki sisters the cute pair, which is strange considering Yuki believed that they were friends. Notably, another student named Shirayama also fell off of one of the school's buildings and died, although his death was an accident. But infuriatingly, due to the previous event, the school is refusing to take responsibility for Zakuro's bullying and attributes it to an accident like the last one. In passing, we can hear some students calling Zakuro a whore over rumors of her being a slut and other general insults and slurs that are mixed with people genuinely sad about it. We then meet the real Otonashi Ayana, intelligent and crude. She makes an immediate impression of how autistic she acts. Her only friend that we know of is Yuki. Yuki skipped class to hang out on the roof like she usually does, then goes back to meet the Wakatsuki sisters after the bell rings. She waits for them while doing random stuff and moves to the rooftop again, finding Ayana, then to Zakuro's classroom where she finds Senegawa Yui. Senegawa is her homeroom teacher who wants us to know more about the circumstances for Zakuro. As Yuki walks away, she starts feeling dizzy and stumbles accidentally towards the old pool, where she runs into Mamiya Takagi. He acts incredibly suspicious and appears out of seemingly nowhere and runs off before Yuki can really question him. Yuki heads out to the field to find Tsukasa and Kagami, and runs into Ayana again, who suddenly disappears out of nowhere, but Yuki brushes it off and continues on with the Wakatsukis. The 14th comes along and Yuki heads to class in the morning. The students were discussing this website called the WebBot Project, which supposedly predicts the end of the world, and other predictions, like 9/11 and other terrorist attacks. It doesn't say exactly how it knows that the world is going to occur and how the world is going to end, but it just says it's happening on the 20th and that it's going to be big. Funny how easily people latch onto superstitious reasoning from a bot. They have no idea of what makes it work. Like all apocalypse scholars, this one is just as unlikely, especially from a shit-spewing text generator. Apparently the July 20th date had been circulating for a while on the school's underground message board, so Yuki asks around. She attempts to get some invite from a guy named Kiyoshi. He invites her, but Kiyoshi wants something in return. He wants her to come to a party since they need someone strong. Yuki knows martial arts, but it's incredibly strange that he would want and act like Yuki's the muscle they need. Yuki doesn't have an actual phone number or a cell phone, so she uses a free email as to not give out her actual email. She goes to investigate Zakuro and runs into Kiyoshi's little sister, Yasuke. Yasume is really concerned about the end of the world happening, and she incessantly asks if it'll actually happen. Yuki didn't really know Zakuro, but she assures Yasuko, that's her name, that it's somewhat ridiculous, but she'll investigate it. Interestingly, Yasuko shows Yuki a text that supposedly came from Takashima Zakuro today, the 14th, at 3:33 p.m. It reads, "Through death I have been reborn as a warrior, or so they said, but it hurts. I have no body, but it still hurts. It hurts because I've been broken. Therefore, everyone must die. You will all die in 6 days. All of you will die." Disturbingly, attaches a photo of 3 mangled corpses. Assumedly, this would be the bodies of Zakuro and the 2 girls. Most people in the class had been sent this text, so Zakuro seems to have sent a commemorative text to plenty of people. First and last prank. Yuki goes to investigate Zakuro's desk, where she finds strange markings. She finds the name Mamiya etched into the desk, and a strange, gooey substance inside the desk, and 2 sets of fingerprints. She heads to the old pool to find Takagi. As she approaches, Yuki isn't doing so hot. She's hit with a dizzy spell, and her head starts throbbing. But she finds Takagi. He's incredibly different, almost as if he had an awakening, or was on some kind of mind-altering drug. To those thoughts, he answers the questions Yuki is thinking of, to her own surprise. He reads her mind.
You are a worthless, bitch-ass nigga. Your life literally is as valuable as a summer ant. I'm just gonna stump you. You're gonna keep coming back. I'm gonna seal up all my cracks. You're gonna keep coming back. Why? Because you keep smelling the syrup, you worthless bitch-ass nigga. You're gonna stay on my dick until you die. You serve no purpose in life. Your purpose in life is to be in my stream sucking on my dick daily. Your purpose in life is to be in that chat blowing a dick daily. Your life is nothing. You serve 0 purpose. You should kill yourself now and give somebody else a piece of that oxygen and ozone layer that's covered up so that we can breathe inside this blue trapped bubble.
Huh. I guess he did learn about Hyperborea and become Hyperborean. Takagi taunts Yuki yet again at the entrance to her house and tells her to study reason and ascend before disappearing again. She then signs up for the message board and goes to bed. Yuki, for some reason, justifies to herself all the reasons she would have for being late and walks right into Hyperborean super male Mamiya Takagi yelling at the Wakatsuki sisters. Yuki then disrupts class by destroying the liberal mutt teacher with facts and logic.
How about I give you a pro tip? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flop my BBC out on the table. When your mom fucking invites me over for dinner, you're gonna see a big piece of beef on the motherfucking table. I'm gonna tell you to go in the kitchen and get me all the motherfucking seasonings you got. I need you to get the garlic salt. I need you to get the motherfucking seasoning salt while my BBC sits there on the table and you just see it pulsate like moving liver that's been taken out of a motherfucking cow. And you're just gonna stare at it and be like, keep seasoning. Stare at you, keep seasoning, motherfucker. You're gonna keep seasoning my meat over and over again. Keep seasoning it, nigga. And I'm gonna pull out my motherfucking goddamn flop my BBC off the table. It's gonna go like a slime noise because it's just covered in saute. And I'm gonna take that BBC, walk straight to your mom's mouth and stare at you.
He pushes a girl to the ground. Based.
Hi, Sonic. I've been meaning to tell you something.
Shut up, you stupid bitch! Hi-ya!
And knocks out the teacher with a vase, then starts his insane rant. He attributes the cover-up of Zakuro and Shirayama to the pursuit of humanity to conceal death for the sake of safety. He's gone full Jim Jones here, and likens his next few novel predictions to that of a scientist on the level of Einstein, and assures that they will come true, proving he is on the same level. Specifically, that Shirayama and Zakuro died so that he could become the savior. The world will end in 5 days, and that the thickness of death in the air will be confirmed with yet another death. A large number of people will witness that death, and the deceased will speak of the ultimate demise. Yuki goes up to the roof and gazes into the sky with Ayana after not feeling well from the course of events today. I feel like anybody would be dazed and confused if they saw an unassuming kid act like a preacher and show his strength in front of them. But regardless, Ayana tells Yuki that her limit is Yuki's limit of the world. This would then mean that anything Yuki knows, Ayana can tell her and show her, and vice versa. Frighteningly strange to come out of the blue and makes her character even more confusing so far. They speak about Takaji's ramblings on death and tackle his claims. I don't really want to show a whole bunch since I don't want to spoil a ton in this first part, and if you've read the story, you already know. But it's strange that they talk about hiding death. In our world, you can't escape from death. You get articles of guy being beheaded, people cheering it on, wars transcribed and vicariously lived through the television and computer. It's just interesting that Takaji and Yuki both talk about humanity hiding death and digging it up. If you look not more than 5 feet away from you, you can watch someone die. It feels as if they're very foreign to the state of the world, even in 2012, which I guess lines up with both the characters as we currently understand them. Yuki skips classes, yet sort of interacts with classmates when she has to, and Takaji is a ghost moving through life who just now happened to have slipped into taking on a overwhelming presence over the school's discussions. Nevertheless, Ayana taunts Yuki with unseen information that she herself has hidden from her own conscious mind. She shows her a glimpse of Zakuro's suicide. She had seen the aftermath directly. We have confirmation that Yuki is simply unreliable to the reader. Ayana asks her what the minimum number of souls that a world requires, and answers without letting her respond, with the possibility of only one soul being needed. She vanishes, like always, immediately afterwards. When Yuki gets home, she's been accepted into the message board and starts digging. Zakuro's scribbling on the desk was in fact her own, which is confirmed with her threads on the message boards. Then soon before she died, she sent her last post. The first chain Zakuro letter was sent on the same day in the evening at 10:44 p.m. to a large number of people. Yuki theorizes that the person who sent these messages must have had access to a register of names. She looks at the WebBot project site and finds an address, but before she knew it, the sun was rising. The address led to a place belonging to the name of a company called the New White Lotus Foundation. It was a set of apartments with only one name on the plate for who was living in that space. A small girl greets her at the door and, for some reason, strangely already knew Yuki's name and asks her, "Who are you right now?" With everything that's happening, this isn't even the strangest thing, but she's still sort of creeped out by it. The girl lets her in. Her name is Mamiya Hasaki, Takaji's little sister. The website belonged to her mother, who's effectively a vegetable. It's a fake site that takes information and spews it out when it adds predictions to its database. The website is a hoax, and instead, Yuki found that it was just born out of sad circumstances. Yuki leaves while Hasaki says that she's been unable to see her brother, and strangely enough, assures Yuki that she can come back at any time if she wants to. She also asks if Yuki likes the Wakatsuki sisters out of nowhere for some reason. Very strange encounter. Yuki returns to school in the afternoon to search around. She encounters Tachibana Kimika, my beloved. She was tampering with Yuki's desk. She runs off, and Yuki catches up easily, even though Kimika seemingly said she ran track. She refers to Takaji as the savior, and blinds Yuki with a powerful flash of light to get away. Just as she's about to leave school, she spots a few suspicious figures behind the school. She doesn't find anyone, but she then hears an earth-shattering crash and crack next to her. A hand grips her leg, and a gurgled voice asks out for help and says Takaji's name just before the life fades from her eyes. The homeroom teacher from earlier, Senagawa Yui, fell to the ground right before her very eyes and died. Kimika runs right up to Yuki and Senagawa and snatches Senagawa's phone right out of her hands just after Yuki was calling the hospital. She mutters that Senagawa was referred to by Kiyokawa and was registered to the message board since close to its inception. She's surprised by the amount of emails as well and runs off quickly afterwards. Yuki runs to the staff room on the verge of passing out. Yuki suddenly loses track of time, a common occurrence for her, and now it's night. Just as she's done before, she justifies the time loss like she's coping to herself. She heads back home and investigates further on the message board. She finds that more Zakuro messages were sent to specific people. 2 girls, who we'll name in a later part, got the brunt of the messages as they bullied Zakuro. The other notable Zakuro chain email was this: "Another one will die, from the rooftop into the courtyard. They will keep dying, and it can't be stopped. Soon it will all end." Creepy shit, and it was sent on the same day that Senagawa died, leading credence to Takaji's prediction. Yuki heads to school in the morning, where she's greeted by a weirdly acting Kiyokawa, who was the teacher that announced Zakuro's death in the beginning. She said that counseling was scheduled and that the counselor would soon arrive. Kiyokawa continually denies any allegations of bullying going on in the school, still trying to hang on to this media-friendly story of a perfect environment. When suddenly she has to leave, and Yuki snoops around in her purse with the information that she heard the other day. She notices that Kiyokawa had Senagawa's phone for some reason. Yuki snatches it and runs off home immediately. Curiosity takes hold of her, and she experiments with trying to restore the deleted messages on her phone. Thankfully, she does restore them, and finds that Senagawa had been getting individual emails separate from the group chainmail. She had been sent upsetting and threatening messages throughout the week, and on the 16th, right up to her death. At 5:58, the final Zakuro email was sent to her phone, and Senagawa's final back and forth message was 50 minutes before that. The back and forth of messages between the sender and Senagawa was obviously incredibly disturbing. Besides it directly causing Zakuro to jump off the building, Senagawa has some kind of connection to Zakuro that she felt particularly guilty about. In Senagawa's phone, she had both Zakuro's email and her phone number. Curious. Yuki tries to call Zakuro's phone number in Senagawa's phone, and suddenly hears a ringing from inside her desk drawer. A phone that had to belong to Zakuro was inside, ringing. The phone was partially broken and bloody, with the same address as Zakuro. Yuki takes a moment to catch her breath, but knocks over her detective kit's aluminum powder, revealing fingerprints all over her desk and walls. A distorted spirit enters the room and reaches out for her. Yuki runs as far and as long as she can away from the house, ending up at school in the early morning of July 18th. With her aching body, she makes her way up to the roof and finds Aina there, early in the morning. Her presence is a strange one in the story, acting like a phantom observer. Yuki conks out on the cold concrete roof and wakes up to Ayana still there. Not much occurs here other than cryptic trolling from Ayana, but Yuki runs back to her house to check the actual phone now that she's feeling better, and to check where the Katsuki sisters are. She finds that they aren't home, and that 5 sets of fingerprints are currently on the phone of Zakuro. Yuki's, Zakuro's, Kimika's, and Kiyokawa are currently known. She infers that the final set would have to belong to Takaji. Yuki heads to the old pool to confront Takaji, where she finds a large foundation underneath the old pool by going through the sewers. She had heard a crying voice echoing throughout the sewer and followed it up a ladder leading there. She finds Tsukasa kneeling over a large pool of blood, and in the middle of the pool was Kagami's limbless body. Yuki carries her body back to her home when Kagami starts speaking. They discuss a story about Yuki helping Kagami through hard times, but just when they get back to the Katsuki's residence, reality seeps in. Tsukasa rings the doorbell, only to have an unknown woman answer the door, and confusion sets in when we see that the body that was once carried on Yuki's back was a broken doll, and the spirit from earlier has appeared yet again. She runs and runs until she makes it to the school, knowing that things aren't at all the way she understood them to be. She's on the verge of breaking. Ending up at the entrance gate, she finds Aina, who asks her to see the end sky, and says that it isn't a very special sky, it's a common sight with familiar things. The most terrifying thing in this chapter so far. Yuki has just witnessed the death of her childhood friend, only to find out she wasn't real. She's been haunted by a glitch in reality, and is now asked to come see the ending with this horribly mysterious girl. They follow the path she took earlier, leading to the top of Building C. She witnesses a girl jump to her death while Mamiya Takaji watches. Yuki confronts him and asks what's happening here. He dodges it with comically insane rambling, while Yuki follows it up saying that she knows he's behind everything. He was the administrator to the message board and sent the chain letter to everyone on the mailing list. Takaji stops her and finishes the final thing. The people who directly contributed to Zakura's bullying were Akasaka Megu, Kitami Satoko, and both of them were seen on the message board begging for the emails to stop, and were the 2 aforementioned girls that I said would come up in another part. Senegawa Yui, and surprisingly, Zakura's friend, Tachibana Kimika. Kimika was the girl who just jumped off. Takaji was the true culprit behind everything, but it doesn't really answer all the missing gaps in information. Before she can even finish the conversation, Takaji cuts it short and jumps.
もう時間だ。どうやら君はこの時間に永遠にとどまる気だね。僕は先に行くよ。待てマミヤ。僕は君が好きだったんだがね。あれは次の空。マミヤがいない。私は綾菜さん、私あれは何？
なんでもないよ。ただ間宮くんが飛び降りただけだよ。
何なの？
なんでもないよ。ただ間宮くんが飛び降りただけだよ。
でも私は見た。
なんでもないよ。
いや、
なんでもないよ。
ただ何なんだ？
なんでもないよ。ただ間宮くんが飛び降りただけだよ。
Listen to me. Don't let go. Don't let this desperate moonlight leave me your empty pillow. Promise me the sun will rise again. Embracing thoughts of tonight's dreamless sleep. My head is empty, my toes are warm. I am safe from home.
Yeah, it leaves you speechless when you read it for the first time. You go from this trippy dream to this sober reality that slowly morphs into a demented nightmare realm from which Yuki can't escape. You eventually have to conclude that as the reader of the story, you are now held against your will and cannot trust the narrator so far. Very interesting position to be placed in from the very start of the story. But starting a tradition for this series, we'll be starting a timeline here, and the next part will actually reason out where the events occur after we cover It's My Own Invention. So, we can easily conclude that Chapter 1 is a dream, but where and when does this dream happen on the timeline? It has too much information from July 12th and onwards to be placed at the start. So the start of the timeline is currently Yuki waking up on the 12th, and the end point is Takagi and Kimika's suicide on the 20th. We can easily place a time for Sakura's death at sometime before 10:44 on the 12th. Next, we'll place the death of Senegawa at 5:58 on July 16th from the timestamp. I believe this is the most we can easily discern from the actual information the story gives us in this chapter. And other than that, it's going to be speculation, of which I would have to use later information that I do not want to just yet until it comes up. I don't need to state all the rest for now until we get the harder events to specify in the next chapters, but Yuki's unreliable narration complicates the rest of the events so far. We have large stretches of time that she just happens to justify to herself instead of knowing what she actually did or knowing what she experienced. Reality feels very fleeting for Yuki. She's tired all the time and gets dizzy easily. Usually after these occurrences, we have large gaps in time. It's like a protection by her brain for her own sanity, but we don't know what or where she goes or does during those times. I don't believe I can explain this fully without discussing the next chapters, but here's what the theoretical timeline currently looks like. Not much to speak about here yet. This was a trip, and I apologize that it was long, but I have to set up the dominoes in order to knock them down in the future. It was significantly easier to sabotage the tone of a joke earlier on, but as it progresses, it becomes harder, and I don't want to make the content seem any less important, and make the tone seem watered down overall. I promise that the next episode will be entertaining and have more analysis, but it will be hard with how horrific the subject matter gets for jokes. I'll see you people next time, I guess. I'll leave you off with, I guess, a snippet of outtakes? I don't know. Whatever. See you next time. But for the people who did pause to read it... Fuck. I turned off my mic! I'm gonna leave that in.